Okay. Planning Committee, where members of the public are present. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. We're recording this meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating areas, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recording for webcasting or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend the recording of the meeting should this be necessary to maintain the proper running of the meeting. This is a meeting of the Council held in public. It is not a public meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Anyone else attending to film or record any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disturb the meeting. Please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. If the fire alarm sounds, leave by the nearest exit and officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Procedures for each item. The planning officers will present their report and committee members will ask any points of clarification. The meeting will allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on a particular application to do so. Each person will be invited to come forward to the table at the front of the public seating area and will have 3 minutes to give their views. Thank you. I have some apologies for absence. I have Councillor Callaghan, which is replaced by Councillor Alan Davis. Our independent member is unwell, which is Councillor Morris, so he won't be attending neither. And I think, is there any more apologies? No? Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest and lobbying. Have I any declarations of interest? Well, I have two. I have item 5, which I've got a pecuniary interest in, and oh, sorry. Oh no, I don't have a pecuniary. Sorry, I read that wrong. And item 6, which I have been lobbied on. So we go to yes.
Sorry, may I ask what your non-pecuniary interest is, please?
Sorry, I may have had, and I think most of you here might have had, because I thought it was Hallmark, and you know, Kevin, that Hallmark bought the chain of office, which is won by Alan. So do we all make a pecuniary interest in it?
It's your interest, not just asking what it was.
No, but before this, your mayor wore it. So, you know. No, well, I haven't at the moment, so I did think it was Hallmark. Okay? Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Myers?
I'm just trying to clarify.
With respect, Mo, he's got a right to ask the question.
No, that's fine.
You can't have a go at him for asking.
No, but I've answered your question.
Well, no, it's your tone of voice that you used towards it then, actually. It wasn't very nice.
Oh, sorry. Well, I do apologise, Councillor Myers. Okay. Now we go, if you're happy with that, we go to the minutes. We have confirmation of the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 23rd of October. I don't think you was here, Kevin.
Was I not in for that one?
No.
Month. I was away. LGA conference.
Okay. Anybody else? No? So do we all agree? The minutes, please? Show. Thank you. Thank you. Item 4 has been cancelled.
Sorry, Chair. I abstain. I also wasn't present at the meeting.
All those in favour, please show. Any abstentions? Thank you. Demolition of existing building and redevelopment of the site comprising the erection of a 4-storey building incorporating 20 residential units, use class C3, 1, 2 and 3-bedroom flats, and the erection of a 4 number 3-bed houses, use class C3, with new vehicular access, associated car, motorcycling and cycle parking, private and communal amenity areas and landscaping at 7 Stock Road, Billericay. I think that's you, Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So the site, as you can see on this slide here, is as in red. It's located on the west side of Stock Road in Billericay. It comprises a vacant 2-storey building last used as a residential facility for children and young people, and I believe it was closed about 2018, so it's been vacant for a number of years. There's an aerial photograph of the site. You can see it's just to the northeast of Billericay Railway Station, Radford Crescent, Radford Way, and Stock Road there. There are modern part 2, parts 3-storey blocks of flats either side. Radford Court, to the rear is a 4-storey block of flats, along with associated garages. To the northwest of the site, there are residential properties in Cromwell Avenue, which back onto the site on high ground. The land drops from the north to the south of across the site by around 2.5 metres. So there's a couple of photographs, so you can see the existing building there, relative to the flats at 5 and 9 Stock Road, either side. And there's a few photographs just showing the back of the site at present. It's about 150 metres north of the Billericay Conservation Area and around 30 metres west of a Grade 2 listed building at former St Andrew's Hospital at Grey Lady Place. So the proposed development, I should say, it's a revised scheme to an earlier scheme that was refused by the committee for 30 flats in 2 4-storey type blocks of flats back in April 2023. And the scheme now submitted seeks to address the reasons that led to the refusal of that scheme. The reasons for refusal of that scheme are set out on page 198 of your agenda. So the current scheme comprises a sort of a 4-storey block of flats at the front of the site, comprising 21, 2 and 3-bed flats, and a row of 4 terraced houses at the back in sort of a mews type arrangement. All dwellings will meet or exceed national space standards. 10% would be M42 accessible and adaptable dwellings. There's no on-site affordable housing proposed, but an off-site affordable housing committed sum of £74,400 is proposed to be secured by a Section 106 agreement. A financial viability assessment has been submitted with the application. 13 car parking spaces are proposed, along with one accessible space, or including one accessible space, 2 powered 2-wheeler parking spaces, cycle parking, and electric vehicle charging points to be dealt with by building regulations. So this slide shows the previously refused scheme on the left relative to the proposed scheme on the right. And the scheme on the right, as you can see, is overlaid the refused scheme in red. So you can see the difference between the two. I think the plot ratio is slightly improved, so it's about just over a third would be developed and the rest would be hard and soft landscaping. One of the primary reasons for refusal of the previous scheme was that it comprised a 4-storey block of flats at the back part of the site, which was there was concerns about overbearance and overlooking, and that has now been omitted in favour of those sort of part 2, part 3-storey terraced houses, as you can see there. The block at the front has been, it's roughly the same sort of footprint, but it's been reconfigured, reduced in height, and design and set further north within the plot. So this slide shows it quite nicely in relation to how it was intended to look in the street. So the top one was the one that was previously refused, and the bottom one shows the scheme proposed. I've put the heights of the buildings on for members to consider, along with identifying the drop in gradient across the site. And then this shows it from the south side, so you can see the comparisons. Top refused, bottom proposed, so you can see it's certainly a marked change at the back with the houses. And again, this is the view from the north, so this would be the view that residents from Cromwell Avenue would see. Before, they would have perceived the large block at the back on the top right. Now they'd see the two-storey tops of the Mews houses. And then this is a rear view of the proposed flats. Refused at the top, proposed at the bottom. And then this one shows the elevations of the proposed houses. So they would comprise sort of deep garages at the ground floor, and then the accommodation in the floors above. So the proposed site layout, as I mentioned, there'll be 13 parking spaces, which represents around 1 for every 2 units. There'll be 1 parking space for each of the houses, which effectively means there'll be no parking spaces for the 1-bed flats, and approximately 1 for every 2 or 3-bed flat in the flat block. I've shown the far left picture there. Just shows the garden sizes for the houses, and this is sort of the indicative landscape sort of scheme. Proposed dwelling mix, as I mentioned, it would be there'd be 10 1-bed flats, 9 2-bed flats, 1 3-bed flat, and 4 3-bed houses. So 24 in total, as compared to the 30 1 and 2-bed flats in the previous scheme. So these are the proposed floor plans for the flats. So you can see there's some undercroft car parking for the ground floor, cycle and powered 2-wheeler parking also at the back of the flats in the building there. And then this shows the second and third floor. All of the flats meet national space standards. There was a daylight and sunlight assessment carried out as well, and the majority of units passed those. I think there were a couple of bedrooms in the north-facing elevation of the flats that were slightly below on the daylighting, but they served bedrooms, and the majority of rooms passed, so we were broadly comfortable with that. And these are the proposed floor plans for the houses. Like I say, they're 3 beds, so you can see the parking at the base there. So in terms of Section 106 contributions, as you can see, the contributions would be sought towards highway improvements, pedestrian access, sustainable transport, healthcare, open space, culture, play and sports, employment and skills, totaling just over £110,000. 74,400 to be secured towards affordable housing commuted sum. There would be early and late stage reviews as well, so should the viability of the scheme improve, that figure could increase. There's also a condition requested by the Highway Authority that the bus stops at Billericay Railway Station be upgraded. There's 4 of those, each with a real-time information board, which would amount to just under £100,000 equivalent in terms of investment. These are some computer-generated images just to show it in relation to from Stock Road, from in relation to number 5 to the left and number 9 to the right, and again looking from Stock Road in relation to number 9, just so you can see the scheme now drops in line with the falling gradient of the road. In terms of consultations, over 100 neighbouring residents in the vicinity were notified of the application, together with a site notice and press notice. This generated 1 resident response on grounds of insufficient parking, and an objection from Billericay District Residents Association. No objection was raised by Billericay Town Council. A summary of the consultation responses are listed on pages 192 to 196 of the agenda. I would also draw your attention to an update sheet just identifying some additional comments received from the Billericay Tree Wardens group. These largely replicate some of the comments I raised before and also identify the proposed provision of swift bird boxes which are covered by some conditions. So the key considerations for us are whether the proposals have addressed the reasons that led to the refusal of the earlier scheme, the impact on the character and appearance of the area and upon the setting of the and significance of designated heritage assets, i.e. the conservation area and the listed building St Andrew's Hospital opposite, the impact on the amenities of neighbouring occupiers, standard of accommodation for future occupiers, highways and parking considerations, affordable housing, infrastructure considerations and the impact on trees and landscaping. As I mentioned, in terms of the design, the proposed scheme has been reduced in height from the previous scheme was 14.5 metres, it's now just over 12 metres. The design of this scheme is now seeks to take, is more of a balanced appearance. It takes some of its design cues from the listed building St Andrew's Hospital opposite in terms of the gable elements. Proposing for, intended to go for like a buff brickwork and stonework to the elevations with slate roofs. The building is set further in from number 5 Stock Road to seek to address the reasons that led to refusal of the earlier scheme in terms of concerns about loss of light to number 5. It's now about 8.5 to 10 metres from that block and has addressed that reason. There's an average of 5 metres would be retained between the block and number 9 Stock Road to the north. So we're happy that there's sufficient space around the buildings and that the site could adequately accommodate the building. We had some initial concerns that it was still broadly a similar mass to the previous scheme, but because they've reduced the height and we've lost one of the gable elements towards the rear part of that side elevation, we feel it's broadly now acceptable in design terms. In terms of the heritage assets, as I mentioned, you've got St Andrew's Hospital opposite to the east of the site, which is on high ground and beyond an established tree belt. The County Conservation Officer has been consulted and raises no objection in terms of the impact of that development on the setting or significance of the heritage asset. And in terms of the impact on adjoining occupiers, the building, as I mentioned, it's now set well in from the boundaries. It meets their 45-degree code set out in the Essex Design Guide, designed to avoid overshadowing. In terms of overlooking, there's at least 28 metres, I think, distance between the backs of the houses and the backs of the dwellings in Cromwell Avenue, which, notwithstanding their relatively short gardens to the houses, would ensure that there is sufficient distance between these properties to avoid material overlooking of the gardens of Cromwell Avenue to properties in Cromwell Avenue. In terms of parking, as I mentioned, there's 13 car parking spaces proposed. Whilst this is less than 1 per unit, it is in a sustainable urban location close to Billericay Town Centre and Railway Station, and no objection has been raised by the Highway Authority. So just on the planning balance, just to identify there's the positive versus the negative. So the positives are it would contribute to the Council's 5-year housing land supply. As you know, it stands at 2.34 years. This would be a moderate positive from the 24 dwellings proposed. There would be a moderate positive contribution towards affordable housing through the commuted sun provision, efficient reuse of a brownfield previously developed site in an urban location, economic, social benefits, preservation to the setting of listed building, biodiversity enhancements, and there'd be bus stop enhancements as well at Billericay Railway Station. So some of the negatives, as I mentioned, the apartment building depth and bulk is still a reasonably bulky block of flats, but we're happy with the design, so I've given that a moderate negative. Relative short rear gardens to the mews houses, but because of the great distances between that and the rear gardens of Cromwell Avenue, we've given that a limited negative. Loss of established trees. If some mature trees would be lost on the northern boundary, these are sycamores and Lelandii of low amenity value. The arboricultural officer has raised no objection to their removal, subject to replacement as part of a landscaping scheme which would be conditioned. And the amount of on-site parking, I put that as a limited negative because obviously it's slightly below the one per unit we seek, but because of its sustainable location, we're broadly happy with the scheme. So to conclude, the proposed development would make an efficient reuse of a previously developed site in a sustainable urban location and make a positive contribution towards the Council's 5-year housing land supply. The proposed development is considered to be of a good quality design overall in terms of its character and appearance, form and layout, and will provide a good quality dwellings and living conditions for future occupiers that respects neighbouring occupiers. An acceptable level of car parking is proposed, given its sustainable location. The scheme will also deliver contributions towards highway improvements, pedestrian access and sustainable transport, as well as upgrades to bus stops. The Section 106 agreement would secure appropriate financial contributions to mitigate impacts on local services and infrastructure. Early and late stage reviews would secure additional affordable housing contributions should the viability of the scheme improve. The proposed development is considered to have suitably addressed the reasons that led to the refusal of the previous scheme in April of 2023, represents a sustainable form of development in accordance with the adopted local plan and NPPF, and is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out on pages 224 to 233 of the agenda and the completion of a Section 106 legal agreement to secure the planning obligations and contributions set out at 5.23 of the report. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Gordon. Have we any clarifications on this? Councillor Myers.
Thank you. It's to do with the parking and obviously the Essex parking standards that exist. In terms of the flats, and we've seen this all across the borough as well with sustainable locations, it doesn't necessarily have to be, some developments are non-car parking and some do have some spaces, but in terms of houses, there are 4 3-bedroom use houses. They should have 2 parking spaces each as per the Essex Design Guide, shouldn't they?
The parking standards advocate a minimum of 2 parking spaces for dwellings with 2 or more bedrooms, but allow for reductions in urban locations that are sustainable. So this would be, notwithstanding the houses, and yeah, ideally 2 parking spaces would be a preference, given its proximity to Billericay Town Centre and railway station, and that they are quite deep garages, so potentially you could get 2 small cars within them, notwithstanding they can only accommodate 1 car to a standard, modern standard. We feel the parking level is acceptable. The parking ratio is exactly, well, broadly the same as the scheme that was previously brought to the committee, and the application wasn't refused on parking grounds, so I'll just highlight that as well. But I do appreciate these are now houses, the previous scheme was flats.
Thank you, Gordon. Any more clarification? Councillor Myers.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon, for that. I mean, obviously this is a bit of different kettle of fish when you're considering houses rather than flats, and obviously with one, a 3-bedroom house with 1 parking space, and you say there's deep garages, people in Billericay, well, might drive small cars, but more than likely drive bigger cars. So it is an issue. If it was just fully flatted, or rather the houses weren't there but then increased the parking provision, I mean, obviously this would be a bit more acceptable if they did that. I suppose my other point of clarification, of course, is the fact that when Essex Highways were looking at this, did they consider the fact that this did include houses, and on their parking standards were the houses with two cars per dwelling of 2 or more bedrooms, or did they look at the scheme in terms of saying, oh, it's 24 properties in an urban location and 13 car parking spaces, they agreed to be acceptable? Because I know highways get a lot of planning applications coming through, not just from us but from other authorities, but whether or not they've looked at this and properly and seen the 4 Muse houses being there and given an opinion. Because I don't see anything really from highways in this to consider whether or not they've considered the housing rather than just the development of 24 dwellings. Thank you.
if I can go back, I mean, they would have seen it in the description of the application. We did have to clarify with the agent, make a minor adjustment during the procedure, so the council had the second opportunity to review the application just to ensure there was a turning head provided, so they would have been aware that it is houses.
Councillor Myers, are you content with that? Thank you. Any more clarifications? Councillor Baker.
Sorry. Microphone. Apologies. Thank you, Chair. So, Gordon, can I just check? Am I right in saying that when this first came to the committee, the officer's expert recommendation was that it be approved in its original form?
Yes, Councillor, I understand the previous officer was recommending approval of that scheme that was subsequently refused for those two grounds listed on page 198.
Any more clarifications? No? Alex? No? Okay. Can I just ask one point, which I asked you at the briefing, Gordon? The electric charging points, did you find out if there is any? I apologise, I did not seek clarification on that, but they would be required under the building regulations in any event. Thank you. So if you have more clarifications, can I ask Ashish Goyal to come up and give his report, please?
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. As someone who has lived and worked most of my life in Billericay, I'm here today to present a proposal shaped by the opinions of our neighbours, your committee, and our shared commitment to the future of our town. We're not just developers, we're Billericay residents who care deeply about seeing our community thrive. Firstly, we've listened carefully to concerns around density and overdevelopment. In response, we've thoughtfully reduced the scale, aligning the density with neighbouring properties to address concerns about overlooking. Height and massing were also central issues, so we've reimagined the design to lower building heights and reduce mass, particularly near neighbouring homes, ensuring privacy and harmony within the existing landscape. We have received grateful comments from neighbours on the changes we have made. This revised design has also been subject to a number of ongoing pre-application discussions and meetings with the local planning authority, where we worked closely with officers and specialists in design and transport to develop a scheme that is now wholly supported by officers. Understanding that a traditional design was preferred, we took inspiration from Billericay's rich heritage, creating a design that respects and enhances the local character. The proposal is now aligned with our town's architecture and contributes positively to the street scene. We have well exceeded the requirement for parking in accordance with planning policy and PTAL rating, and future-proofed the scheme with proposed EV charging. We carefully balance convenience with sustainability, recognising the site's proximity to public transport with bus stops and Billericay train station within 150 metres. We're equally committed to preserving and enhancing the environment around the site. Significant trees will be protected, and we've incorporated high-quality planting to enrich the area's natural beauty and support biodiversity for the long term. In addition, we've integrated sustainability measures into the scheme, including heat pumps, solar panels, and energy-efficient designs to ensure that this development not only meets today's standards, but also contributes to a greener, more sustainable future for Billericay. Our proposal delivers a thoughtful mix of homes designed to meet the borough's housing needs. The scheme offers a range of unit sizes, providing good quality living spaces with dual aspects, private and communal amenity spaces, and modern, energy-efficient designs to create a high standard of living for future residents. Lastly, we want to emphasise how deeply personal this project is to us. As a family, we've invested our time, energy and resources into bringing forward a scheme that delivers much-needed homes for Billericay. Although it's been a lengthy process, we chose not to appeal the previous refusal out of respect for the committee's feedback and instead focused on addressing every concern raised. With officers recommending approval, we believe this proposal brings genuine value to our town and reflects a vision we all share for a flourishing Billericay. Thank you for your time, and we hope you will view this application as a meaningful community-focused addition to Billericay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. Go back to the committee now. Anybody got any questions? No? Alex?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few comments to say that I'm impressed how much it's been improved since the previous time. There's a good mix of property types now, which is much needed in the borough. We need all sorts of properties, whether it's houses or flats around here. I actually think that the design of it is now more in keeping with the surrounding area, especially the immediate neighbours, than what the previous application was, and indeed it's better than what's currently there in terms of being in keeping. As Councillor Blake would well know, one of my pet peeves on this committee is seeing properties that are vacant, or land that's not being used for anything useful. And as the report says, this property has been vacant since 2018 and doesn't seem to have any hope of being unvacant other than through redevelopment. So yeah, I think this is a good scheme. I'm glad that the developers have taken the committee's views from the previous meeting and improved on them. And yeah, I think that I'm quite happy with this one.
Thank you, Alex. I'm quite happy that the height of it's been reduced. I think, negotiations with the council has proved to be good, so we can go forward on this, because it's nice to know that developers are listening to our officers, and so everybody's happy. I haven't got any problems with that at all. Anybody else? Alex?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the member of the public who just spoke. I do appreciate, of course, that this scheme has come forward and has much reduced in scale to what it was when it was previously refused, because if you saw what the blocks were like, members of the committee who weren't here and you saw it, it was monstrous. It was humongous. And it was very close to the houses on Cromwell Avenue and looking over. I still have an issue over this car parking thing. I think the problem is that we always have this problem with flats and everything, but now we've got houses included. You're going to have families living there. They're not going to have one car, are they? Let's be realistic. They're not going to have one car. If they got rid of the houses, left the flats where they were, and created more car parking in the back, and where it comes on the gradient, yes, lower height, so more in keeping the street scene there, then I'll be more likely to accept it. But I don't agree the 4 Mews houses being there is actually what that site needs. They're not on the street scene. They're not fronting a road. The flats are fronting the road. These houses have been put in the back for developers' pocket money. So I just think that if you got rid of the houses and included parking there, to make it more sustainable for people who do have cars, because these are 1, 2, 3 bedroom flats, I think would be more acceptable to me on this instance. So based on that, I can write some recommendations down for refusal, but we'll be refusing this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any other questions? No? Right, thank you. We'll go straight into the recommendation, which is that planning application number 23015634 be granted planning permission subject to conditions set out section 7 of this report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issuance of the decision notice and the completion of an S106 legal agreement to secure the planning obligations and contributions set out in section 5.23 of this report. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Any abstentions, please?
No,
One.
Against.
What?
You need to ask if there's any against.
Any what?
Any against the recommendation.
Oh, I thought you had to do abstentions first.
No, they
No.
cannot.
Sorry. All those against?
So that's one against.
So any abstentions? 1. Okay. Thank you. It's been granted. Thank you. Thank you. Can we now go on to item 6, which is the 24th/007/86 for retention of general industrial storage and distribution building, B2, B8, retrospective at Paragon Kent Transport, Cranes Farm Road, Basildon, Essex, SS143RY. And I think that is you, Ellie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So as outlined, item 6 is for the retention of a general industrial storage and distribution building at Paragon Kent Transport, Cranes Farm Road, Basildon. In this instance, the key considerations identified are the principal development, the design and visual impacts of the development, impact on neighbouring occupiers and highway safety matters. So the application site comprises an area of land of approximately 1.97 hectares. The site is situated within the Cranes Farm industrial estate, located to the north-west of the roundabout at the junction of the A1235 on Cranes Farm Road and East Main, and the site itself is accessed off of Cranes Farm Road. It's an aerial photo. So the application seeks the retention of this industrial and storage building, which measures approximately 800 square metres. In respect to consultations, there's been no objections from highways, no objections from sustainable urban drainage systems subject to informatives regarding flood mitigation methods, no objections from Essex Fire and Rescue, no objections from environmental health, no objections from economic development, who have encouraged the use of employment space, no comments from borough councillors, and in respect of neighbours, there was 26 neighbour consultation letters that were sent, a site notice and a press notice, and no responses were received on these matters. In respect of the principle of the development, the wider site is used as a haulage contractor's yard by KE, Kent Transport and Storage. The development is one that is retrospective. For the retention of this building, the building is used by a stone restoration specialist for the storage of stone materials, which are used in restoring heritage assets along with a workspace. Therefore, on this basis, it's considered that the principal development is acceptable. So there's the site plan just indicating the building, the ground floor plan. So in terms of the layout, the building is located to the northwest corner of the site. The building is located 4 metres from the western boundary and 13.2 metres from the northern boundary. The building is set back 116 metres from Cranes Farm Road itself and is constructed 108 metres from the eastern boundary of the site. In terms of design, the building measures 20 metres in width, 40 metres in depth, and has a pitched roof with a height of 7.76 and a floor space, as previously mentioned, of 800 square metres. As you can see on the plans, the building includes 2 dark blue entrance doors, one of each door are located in the southern elevation and the other doors are located on the eastern. The building is finished with metal cladding, and the size and design of the building would be similar to other commercial units within the area, and it would be viewed against the backdrop of commercial units on neighbouring sites to the west and to the north. It's therefore considered that the design and appearance would not detract from the character and appearance of the surrounding area and is considered acceptable. In respect of noise, pollution and general amenity, given the commercial nature of the site, the application does not give rise to any noise or general amenity concerns, and it's considered acceptable in this instance, and as previously stated, environmental health raised no objections. In respect of highway safety and access, no changes have been made to the existing access arrangements nor to the parking arrangements on site. The existing space is considered to serve sufficiently to the building, and as such it would not result in material harm to highway safety. In respect of flood risk, the application site is within flood zone 1, which is the lowest probability of flooding. The lead local flood authority have raised no objections, but as previously stated, we have added an informative regarding flood mitigation measures. In respect of biodiversity net gain, the development has not impacted any priority habitats, and the site is covered in hard standing. Therefore, the building has impacted less than 25 metres of on-site habitat, so this is exempt from B&G in this instance. These are some site photographs showing the building. So it's the metal cladded white one within the distance, and that's from 2 different elevations. And this shows a bit closer into the building, inside of the building. These are the key issues identified previously, and having consideration to the details of the application, safe policies and the district local plan, and then PPF together with all the material considerations just explored, it's recommended that the committee resolves to grant planning permission subject to the conditions set out on page 298 of the agenda, which is the approved drawings and the addition of soft landscaping condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Have we any clarification points? Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. How long has it been there?
I'm not sure exactly how long it has been there for.
Councillor Mice, this was picked up through an enforcement inquiry. All we know is the enforcement case was opened in March this year, but that's all I can tell you.
Any other questions? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I can just clarify, Ellie, I understand this correctly. So this building is quite a substantial sized building, 800 square metres, 40 metres by 20 metres in size, in quite a prominent location in Basildon, and was erected with no planning permission having been granted. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, so retrospective, so it was built without planning permission, now seeking planning permission. In terms of the scale, I think this photo shows it probably the best in respect of, oh sorry, you can't see it anymore. If that's okay to put back on the screen.
That's fine, I just wanted to clarify I understood it correctly.
Yes, sorry.
And as Mr Sweeney mentioned, my understanding is that this hadn't been picked up by the enforcement agents of the council's planning department. It would still be there with no planning permission. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's reasonable to assume that had that not been picked up, it could have been there forever, and there was no intention of the company who built it to ever seek planning permission for this item.
Yes, well, yes.
Having said that, I think if I understand correctly, had they chosen to seek planning permission before building it, then in all likelihood it would have, your recommendation would have been to approve it and to grant it, on the basis that there's no reasonable grounds for not doing so, given the context, usage of the building, size of the building, etc.
If this would have been an application before it would have been put on site, it would have been approved. Obviously, when we look at something retrospectively, it's still the same considerations as to an application that has been proposed. So it's the same considerations in that respect. It doesn't sort of change. It would be, if we have something that's already there, if we have something that's proposed, it's still the same considerations in terms of the normal material considerations. So if this had have been given as a proposal without being built, yeah, the outcome would have been the same.
Okay, just one last thing. And the reason it's before the committee is because of the size of the site that it's on. So that's correct?
Yes, so the site area itself requires it as it formulates it as a major application.
Thank you.
Councillor Alan Davis.
Thank you, Chair. So, just for clarification purposes, there's this, we saw from the site map that there's this large parking area, and this building's right up in the far left-hand corner at the top. And so all that, the only area being used is the building for the stonemasonry, and all the other area is empty car park. Did the haulers before put up the building, or did the stonemasons put up the building? Do we know that?
I don't personally have the information of who put it up, but I think Charles.
is that a sort of clarification? Whoever owns the building, what you're saying is it the owner of the site or is it the stonemason? That's what you're saying, is it, Alan? Yeah?
What I'm asking is, did the business, it was a hauler's site before, wasn't it? Yeah. Did they put up the warehouse for their purposes, and then, for whatever reason, they left, and the stonemason moved into just the building area, or was it an empty car park, and then the stonemasonry company put up the building? Does that make sense?
Sorry.
Really?
Sorry, Councillor Davis. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I can tell you that the applicant is K Kent Limited, who I think is a haulage company. I suspect they may lease this building to the stonemasons, to the stone restorers.
Okay.
Any more clarifications? No? We've got no speakers on that. I'll go straight into now. Any more questions on this from the committee? Councillor Myers.
No, just sort of discussion point really, rather than questions. I think they're all answered. Well done, Ellie, for your presentation. I know you're still sort of training. You've done very well so far since the last couple of years you've been on presenting to us. So well done. You should be proud of what you've done answering our questions this evening. So well done. To be honest, I mean, we've had this before numerous times, and with Kent as well. The absolute disrespect to this committee of just knocking up a building and then applying for retrospective planning permission or being found out by enforcement and then coming back to get it. I mean, there is nothing really wrong with it. Why didn't they submit it in the first place? It just absolutely makes this committee look, that it is disgusting. And they should be held to account for it. It's not the first time it's happened with this applicant. There's nothing really wrong with it where it is. It's in an economic development area. It's a small part of the land that's there. Just honestly, Chair, it's disgusting that we've got to this. We're a retrospective application. We don't know how long it's been there for. It's just been the fact that enforcement or a report's been made to enforcement about a large building on site, and now come to us. It just disgusted with them, honestly, Chair.
Anybody else wish to make any points of view? Councillor Baker.
Just to completely agree with what Councillor Myers said there. Really, I mean, this process is here for a reason, which is to make sure that inappropriate development doesn't happen in the borough, and it just seems extraordinary that somebody's put up a building of this size in a location of this prominence with no apparent intention to ever seek planning permission for it. I find it absolutely extraordinary. Although, having said that, as Ali's explained, there's no reasonable grounds viewed as a pre-application to reject the application. Yeah, not happy.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Alex? No?
No, just be happy to what?
Just-
Is that the same as the other thing?
No. Just like to actually say I agree with all what's been said tonight, but the problem is I just want to ask the officer, which is Ellie, if this company appeals against it, is it likely that they'll win?
Sorry, as if it was refused at committee today, if they appealed against the refusal, I wouldn't have an answer to that. Obviously, it's the inspector's decision. I can't think of a specific example of something similar to this nature where I can remember the outcome of the appeal decision, so I wouldn't really be able to give a definite answer. I assume because we don't have any sort of reason for refusal that's raised, that's probably why. I could probably give a better answer if there was a specific reason for refusal that we could assess against the considerations, but I wouldn't be able to give a specific answer to that without it happening with the inspector.
Possibly what Councillor Davis said. Yeah,
Sort of scale and size.
No, just to say that, if these people, if they asked first and then done it later, that's the only problem I've got. I don't want to waste money on appeals where it's likely that it might be one. I mean, we can't say.
It is, yeah, however likely that the appeal will probably be allowed on appeal.
Can I assist at all?
Councillor Myers wants to speak. Councillor Myers.
Just to come in, I mean, I can't see any grounds to refuse this or any particular whatever. I just like to clarify that obviously my comments where was obviously along the lines of like, you know, they should be on notice, but this is not acceptable. And going forwards, we need to be clear that applications have to come to us first to be decided rather than you just knocking up a building. We know that's not what legislation says, and that's unfortunate, but it should do. But I can see no reasons to refuse this building on this part of the industrial area of Cranes Farm Road. So we'll be voting for it.
Thank you. Councillor Blake.
It's certainly not often I disagree with Alex. We don't need to make it clear that they need planning permission before they start building. Everyone in the country knows that. So I don't think we need to make anything clear at all to anybody on that. And to even say, well, next time the problem we're going down, well, let's tell them next time if they do this, we won't pass it. Well, we've already heard from the officer that if it's a genuine, would have been passed had it not gone, then it would have gone through anyhow. So you can't say that. You can't even say next time it comes up, we're going to refuse it because of. You can't actually do that. I think it's absolutely disgusting. But it ain't often I disagree with you. But just to tell them, you naughty boys, you do it again, we'll punish you. It just doesn't wash. Everybody in the country knows that you have to have planning permission before you build.
Councillor Hilliard.
Thank you, Chair. I don't normally say a lot, but I'll ask one question. Is there any way that, obviously after this, if it is approved this evening, moving forward, because obviously the vast area of that has probably got quite a lot of area to do further planning in the future, is there any way that we can enforce something or give them notice or documentation that moving forward they have to make sure that that's done in advance? Thank you.
Yeah, I think, as stated, you know, it's I know it's common knowledge that they need to apply for planning permission. So there's nothing we can physically enforce for them to, if they do ever submit anything in the future, that it needs to be submitted before it's built. There's nothing we can physically provide. No, there's nothing in that sense.
I think our legal advisor wants to advise us on something. Thank you, Michelle.
No, it was just to say, following on from the discussion, that there are no reasons for refusal against this application. So if members were minded to refuse the application, then it is likely that the applicant, if they chose to appeal that refusal, that it would be upheld by the inspector, so they would be granted permission ultimately. So I would strongly advise committee to consider the recommendation put forward by the officer.
Thank you. I think that's pretty clear, but we've all got reasons that we might have, and as Councillor Myers said, you know, you don't put something up without planning permission, but there you go. No other questions? No? No? So we'll go straight into the recommendation. The planning application number 2400786 full be granted planning permission subject to the conditions set out in the end of the report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of decision notice. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. All those against? Thank you, Kevin. I think it's granted. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We've come to the end of our planning committee. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.